بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So previously we spoke about tahara min al-hadath al-asghar, purification from minor ritual impurity which is required for salah, and there's also a different type of impurity which is called hadath al-akbar, major ritual impurity. If this happens, then one must take a bath, and I know there are kids here, but we'll just very briefly go through some of these things so that we can all benefit from, inshallah. Al-hadath al-akbar, al-janaba, بخروج المني إلى ظاهر الجسد إذا انفصل من عن مقره بشهوة. Major ritual impurity is in janaba, which is sexual impurity, by the emission of semen or mani out of the body, if it is accompanied by shahwa or passion and desire. وتواري حشفة أو قدرها من مقطوعها في أحد سبيلي آدمي حي. When referring to intimate act of penetration, this will also render the wudu and tahara broken, and one will be in the state of janaba, requiring a bath. If one falls asleep, and in sleep, ووجود ماء رقيق بعد النوم, the presence of any type of fluid, a thin fluid here, after sleep, so you wake up and you find that there's been some emission, then this will also require a ghusl. ووجود بلل ظنه منيا بعد إفاقته من سكر وإغماء. Likewise, after becoming intoxicated or after falling unconscious, if someone experiences wetness or emission of a fluid that they presume to be semen, this will also require ghusl. So these are all janaba of the sexual impurity. The third is hayd for the 2 and 3 are limited to sisters and females, which is hayd and nifas, menstruation, and postnatal bleeding. So all these three, janaba, hayd, and nifas, will require a bath. Wudu will not be sufficient. You have to take a head to toe bath. Then and then only will the janaba or this hadath akbar be lifted, and now you're ready to pray. Now, how do you take a bath in this case? وَفُرُوضُ الْغُسْلِ ثَلَاثَةٌ. There are 3 fard acts in ghusl, the ritual bath. الْمَضْمَضَةُ وَالْإِسْتِنْشَاقُ وَغَسْلُ سَائِرِ الْبَدَنِ. One is to rinse the mouth thoroughly, وَالْإِسْتِنْشَاق, and to rinse the nose thoroughly, وَغَسْلُ سَائِرِ الْبَدَنِ, and washing the entire body once at least. So you must rinse the mouth, rinse the nose, okay, the soft part at least. You don't have to go all the way back to the bone, but just the cartilage area, this has to be cleansed. And then water must be poured over the body, or your whole body must be wet once, right? At least once. And in doing so, you're now clean again. You've now removed hadath akbar, major ritual impurity. Previously we talked about if you cannot make wudu, you make tayammum. So what are the necessary elements of tayammum? وفروض التيمم النية ومسح الوجه والذراعين بالتراب أو ما هو من جنسه كالحجر والرمل ونحوهما بجميع اليد أو أكثرها بضربتين أو ما يقوم مقامهما. The fara'id, or the obligatory elements of tayammum, dry ablution, are: number 1, niyyah. You must make intention. Wudu, niyyah is not required, although it's mustahab, it's sunnah, to have intention to get ajr. But in tayammum, it is a fard. You must intend tahara, purification, with tayammum, otherwise the tayammum is not valid. Okay. Number 2, mashu al-wajhi, wiping the entire face from forehead to chin, from earlobe to earlobe. You must wipe your entire face. وَالذِّرَاعَيْنِ بِالتُّرَابِ, and you must wipe the arms from the tip of the fingers to the elbows, including the elbows of both arms, using either turab, dirt, أو ما هو من جنسي, or anything that comes from the earth that it's not edible, it is not turned to ash, or it does not melt by burning, such as rock. So if you have a large rock, a rock, even though there's no dust on it, you can use it for tayammum. والرمل, if you don't have dirt but you have sand, okay, then sand will also be will qualify for tayammum, or anything, any such substance. again, the key is that it cannot be edible. It should not melt. So precious metals or things like that, it cannot be exposed to heat and melt, or spoil and things like that. So these are some of the basic conditions for the substance, and you must strike it with the entire hand or majority of the hand. So if you have the dirt here, then you'll just strike it once and wipe the face, okay, in the entire face. Of course, take your glasses off, take your hat off, and then you'll strike the surface again, and you'll wipe the entire arm, okay, and then you do the second arm, and you're done. The tayammum is done, okay. So this just once for the face, but you must strike the surface a second time, or touch the surface a second time. وشرط صحته وجود العذر المبيح له كبعده ميلا عن الماء ولو في المصري. The condition of the validity of tayammum is that there must be a legal excuse. You must have a reason. You can't just simply make tayammum because you feel like it. And what is the reason? Such that water is not available beyond a mile, or about roughly 2 kilometers. So if a person is in a situation where they have no water available, you have to first search for water in your surroundings. And if you're out in the wilderness, you have to look. You have to put an effort in. And after a search of approximately 1.8 something kilometers, if you don't find any water, then you've done your due diligence and now you qualify for tayammum. Likewise, if water is available, but it's too cold and it may cause harm or damage to one's health or to one's organs, then وَبَرْدٍ يَخَافُ مِنْهُ التَّلَفَ أَوِ الْمَرَضَ, or such cold by which one fears illness or the loss of limbs. So in intense cold situations, if it's very cold, in one of our classes we talked about someone's out in the wilderness, they're lost, and salat time comes around, you still have to pray. But the question is, it's cold, it's winter, it's sub-zero temperatures, and if they open they unclothe themselves and they wet it with water, ice or snow, whatever it is, this is gonna be fatal, right? They can become severely ill. So in this case, they'll simply make tayammum. وَخَوْفِ عَدُوٍ, likewise, if there's fear of an enemy, that water is available, but the enemy is there, or someone hostile is there, عطش, or you have water, but it's just enough for drinking, وَاحْتِيَاجًا لِعَجْنٍ, or you have water for drinking, but you have a little bit of water just to make your dough, to bake your bread. Okay, so Sharia says you don't have to use that water for wudu, because if you use it for wudu, you won't be able to eat after. Right? So the basic provisions are always given here. وَالطَّبْخِ غَيْرِ مَرَقٍ, and for any type of cooking, necessary cooking, then you can conserve that water. And if you don't have any other water besides that is tahir and clean, you can make tayammum. وَفَقْدِ آلَةٍ, or the loss of instrument. So if you find yourself at a well, for example, the water is there, but it's 50 feet or 30 feet beneath, and there's no way for you to draw the water safely. So the well is there, you can see it, the water is there, it's clean water, fresh water, but there's no bucket, there's no rope. Right? And there's no way for you to get down safely. Then in this case, and say that's the only source of water available, then in this case you qualify for tayammum as well. وَخَوْفِ فَوْتِ صَلَاةِ جَنَازَةٍ أَوْ عِيدٍ, the fear of missing Salatul Janazah or Salatul Eid. These are the only 2 salahs that if you are in a situation where the janazah is starting and you don't have wudu, you have 2 options. One is to go and make wudu and return. In this case, most likely, the janazah will be done. So this is why Sharia allows in janazah salah specifically only, and Eid salah, because there's no replacement. Once you miss janazah, you miss a janazah. There's no backup. Eid salah as well. Traditionally, there's no backup. Nowadays, we have multiple Eid salahs, so this may not apply nowadays, but janazah, it still applies for sure. So that in that case, you can simply make tayammum on a surface that's there. Of course, here it's carpet, but assuming there's, you're outside, then you can make tayammum there on the surface, and you can join the Salatul Janazah, and your janazah will be valid. وَلَيْسَ مِنَ الْعُذْرِ خَوْفُ فَوْتِ الْجُمْعَةِ وَالْوَقْتِ. it is not a legal excuse if one fears missing Jum'ah, that if I go make wudu, I'm going to miss my Jum'ah. Because in that case, okay, although you're faulty for coming late, why are you so late? If you do miss Jum'ah, what do? You pray Dhuhr Salah. So Jum'ah will revert to the original Salah, which is Dhuhr. So it's a different scenario, it's a different case. Janazah has no backup, no replacement. Wal-waqt, or regular waqti salat, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, if you fear that you miss the Jama'at, or let's say if you go to make wudu, the time will expire, this is still not an excuse. You still have to make wudu and pray the salah. If you miss the salah, you make qada, you make it up afterwards. Right? So the tayammum is only allowed for two cases. For janazah salah, if you fear you're going to miss it, which means just the janazah is about to begin or it's already started. You can't make tayammum 10 minutes before. This is an emergency case basically. Same applies for Salatul Eid. Inshallah, if you have any questions you can ask. Yes. Sure. In tayammum, do you have to wipe the feet? No. Mm-hmm. The question is if someone breaks the wudu during Taraweeh, what do they do? Because obviously if they're in the first rows, for example, getting back and leaving the masjid, what do they do? You'll still have to leave. You have to make wudu. Yeah. Yeah, you can leave in cases where someone breaks the wudu. The Prophet ﷺ says that you put your hand on your nose and you leave through the rows. So you can leave and people will make space for you. So it's uncomfortable, but you have to leave. You cannot continue praying or make tayammum in this case. And if you wait till 2 rak'ahs, then sure you can do that, but it's better to just leave. Yeah. And the brothers, if you're in the salah and someone's trying to leave, you can give them space to leave. MashaAllah, some brothers are so focused in their salah that they don't budge sometimes, right? So in the case like this, is emergency, the person, and the sunnah is what? Is you put your hand on your nose like this. You're not saying anything. This is just, so the person will get the idea that you have an emergency. Right? Yes, we're coming to you guys, inshallah. What is the validity, the extent of the validity of tayammum? As long as that condition persists, you can continue making tayammum. So if you don't have water for 3 days, 10 days, a year, Allah forbid, then you can continue making tayammum. In a medical condition, if someone is making tayammum, how long is it valid for? Again, as long as that condition persists, and obviously they haven't broke the wudu. So you made tayammum, the nullifiers of tayammum are the same as wudu. So someone made tayammum for dhuhr, and then they went to the bathroom, and after that, they have to renew the tayammum again. But they can continue making tayammum as long as that condition that allows them to make tayammum, it persists. Yeah. The hadith says, وَلَوْ عَشْرَ سِنِينَ, even 10 years. If you don't have water for 10 years, or someone in a situation like this, they can continue making tayammum, and tayammum is good for wudu or ghusl. If you broke wudu and you don't have water, you can make tayammum. Likewise, if you're in need of a bath, a ritual bath, ghusl shar'i, you can still make tayammum if you fulfill the conditions. Okay, we'll go to Brother Abdul Alim and then Brother Naveed. Yes. If you break wudu in salah, what's the best way to exit? Very good. Once you break your wudu in salah, your salah is broken. So there's no need to make salam. Okay, salam is to leave the salah. So your salah is already broken. The best way is to, again, put your left hand on your nose like this, and you turn away, and you just kind of indicate with your hand to pass through the rows, and you just take your time, and as people let you through, then you move along. And since that brother's space is opened up, people in the rows behind that should step up now. And you can walk nominally, like very subtly, you can take steps and fill the rows, because we don't want to leave a furja, like a gap in the rows. And this we see this happening a lot of times, that there's gaps that form in salah, either because someone left or because we're very poor at making rows. So in the beginning we want our space, and then as the salah progresses, there's all these gaps everywhere. Because we thought we needed this much space, but we realized that we need only this much space. So in any case, if there's a gap in the salah, we have to fill, and the movement should be towards the middle or towards the front. So if gaps are opening up, if you're on this side, you're gonna shift towards the imam, and this side towards the imam. If you're in the back, you're gonna move up. Yes, inshallah. Good question, Brother Naveed.
This will apply to the last row, right? For example, there are 4 rows. The front row, somebody leaves. The previous row will fill it up, right?
Yes, the closest row, exactly. But in this case, if someone is not filling up, then the people who are nearest to that open space should fill it. If they're not, then someone can cross diagonally as well. But you have to obviously give them time. Right? Yes, Brother Naveed. Question is, a lot of people seem to be making wiping on regular socks. And is that valid? Are there some school differences between the fiqh in the fiqh? So the first thing is that, as far as I'm aware, in the classical schools, they all allow masah on non-leather socks, but they all have a condition of إذا كان ثخينان. Thakana is a condition for all schools. Thakana is a quality of the sock that essentially لا يشفان. It is pretty much waterproof or semi-waterproof. So all the schools have this clause, right? The Hanbali school, the Maliki school, the Shafi'i school, the Hanafi schools are very clear on this. So according to the classical schools, there seems to be no permission for this. It seems to be that some individuals among these schools, or perhaps some scholar, I don't know where it started, but loosely reading hadith or a loose interpretation of some of the fiqh conditions, people are applying it because the word is used as jawrab. Jawrab, you find 2 words in the classical works. One is khuf. Khuf is a leather sock. And the Prophet made masah ala khuffay, as the hadith says authentically. The Prophet ﷺ, one hadith says he made masah on jawrab. Jawrab is like a non-leather sock. But that hadith is daif. It's a unanimously weak hadith. So we don't take that hadith. But the schools still allow mas on jawrab with the condition that it has the same characteristics as leather, which is durability. You can walk and travel in it, and it is somewhat waterproof. You should not, whatever school you follow, you should not be making mas on non-leather socks. Right? Now the question is, if someone is doing it, should you pray with them? What was it? Non-waterproof. So leather is one, and then if there's non-leather but they're waterproof, right? You have a lot of these masah socks or wudu gear or such socks that are very durable. They're good socks, and the ulama have verified them and they've vetted them. These socks are okay to make masah over. But regular sports socks, dress socks, and things like that will not qualify because they're too thin. And the whole objective of mas is to prevent you from wetting your feet. But if you were to take your socks into the wudu area, your feet become wet anyways. And in fact, when you make masah, you can actually feel the wetness through the sock automatically. So these will not qualify. Now, if someone is making masah and you're praying with them, it's better to inform them, right? And maybe they shouldn't lead the salah, right? Because the scholars have a different opinion here that if they lead the salah will not even be valid. Right, so this becomes another issue. But of course, looking at the time and sensitivity, if you feel that telling them it may cause some conflict or may get a little aggressive, then you just pray with them if they've already been leading the salah, and then you can repeat the salah afterwards.
But that means
You're just repeating it. It's not qada. Qada is when the time is expired. Yeah. 2 more questions, inshallah. Yes. Yeah, the question is if you start a salah at the end time and then mid salah you hear the adhan for the next salah, do you break? No, you keep praying. You keep praying. You continue, and your salah will be qada now. You don't have to break it. Yeah. No. Yes. Last question.
What are the rulings for when the imam's wudu breaks when he's leaving? And how does the other imam do it?
Good question. This hasn't happened yet, right? Okay. The question is an important question. That's what if the imam loses his wudu? Then how do you appoint a replacement, and what happens to the salah? It's beautiful. The jurists have discussed this. If the imam loses wudu, same thing. The imam will put his hand on his nose and he'll move away from the qibla and he'll appoint someone behind him. That is why people who are closest to the imam, especially those in the first row, but those who are closest to the imam, they must know the basic masail of salah, should be able to recite, and they should be ready and able to assist if there's ever a need. Right? This is important. That's why we don't allow kids typically. Now we're sensitive with kids, and we become very ultra sensitive. You can't tell people things, but 10 years ago, our senior imams, my father, when kids were in the first row, he would say, go away. Right? It is what it is. But now we have to be a little more careful because we've become so sensitive. People feel bad. But the ruling is that, that kids should not be there, because if there's a need, they cannot lead the salah. So the adults should be in the front, preferably the huffaz, the scholars, or those at least who are mature, and they know what to do in the case. When Umar radiallahu anhu was stabbed in Salat al-Fajr, right? Abdurrahman Auf was right behind him, and he right away came up and continued the Salat al-Fajr. Right? So you don't have to read from where the imam was reading from. So to your question, when the imam loses wudu, the imam should put his hand on like anyone else should put their hand on their nose, and will then make ishara to and appoint someone. It's called istikhlaf. He'll appoint someone to lead the salah, and that person should know. They shouldn't just look like lost. When the imam is turning around with his hand on his nose, right? This is a clear indication. Unfortunately, many of us haven't read fiqh, right? So we're totally allowed, like, okay, are you okay? Do you need something? So this is an indication that the person has lost his wudu. If the imam is leaving, he should simply have to just, with his hand, or he can pull the person up as well, right? Some scholars say without turning his from qibla, you just turn back and appoint somebody like that. Both are valid, and this person will now come and continue the salah. If the imam had read Surah Al-Fatiha and had begun a surah already and had read at least 3 ayah, then you can go right to ruku' because the qira'ah is done for that rak'ah. But if the imam hadn't read Fatiha yet or had been through mid-Fatiha, you can continue or start Fatiha over and recite any surah. You don't have to recite the exact same thing he was reciting if the surah has started already. Like, oh, he read Surah Al-Kahf, I don't know Surah Al-Kahf. That's okay, you can read Surah Qul Huwallahu Ahad. No problem, right? Yes? Yeah, it's like the imam never left. So if the imam did 1 rak'ah and then he broke in the second rak'ah, everyone else's salah is valid, and they will continue 3 more rak'ahs, and the new imam will complete that. So you have to be alert as well. You have to know which rak'ah you're in. Inshallah. Tomorrow we'll continue. If you have more questions, Jazakumullah khair. Subhanakallah.
When you are driving to the public washrooms, you have to water, but you can't put your feet on the top or in front of everyone. So
Can you? You can.
I can, but the problem is that everyone is going to look like this. In that case, more people feel bad.
In public washrooms, you see a lot of strange things. So you could be one of the strange people. It's okay. But we'll talk more about that another day. But essentially, if you're in a public place and you have to make wudu, washing the feet in this thing becomes awkward. So I tell my students, and my personal practice, as I've seen from our mashayikh and our teachers, is that when you're traveling, you're expecting to be in a public place, you have to prepare yourself with wudu. And if you can't keep your wudu the entire day, obviously, then wear the socks, the khufs or the masa socks. Or another resort is you can wash your face and arms and then wash your feet elsewhere. Depending on the weather, you go outside. If it's the summertime, you go outside by your car, right? But like I said, it is what it is. If you have to wash your feet in the sink, then especially if you're traveling, people do all sorts of things, right? So you don't need to be, right? It's awkward, but it is what it is. And maybe if Muslims begin to write to en route in these travel plazas, they will provide. Right? They will provide, as some campuses, university campuses, and other places have done. I think Wonderland Niagara Falls has a foot washing station. A lot of these places have a foot washing station just for that. So if we demand and we kind of petition this, then I'm sure they would, because they don't want us washing our feet in the sink, so they would happily provide us a room for that. Hopefully, inshallah. Subhanakallah bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.